Good evening, everyone. We will begin Meishu-sama's birthday special evening service at the Miroku Association headquarters. Let us pray together the Amatsu-Norito, Prayer of Heaven, followed by the Miroku Prayer. Please stand. Taka-amahara ni kamsumarimasu. Kamuromi kamuromi no mikoto moshite. Sumemi oya kamuri sanagi no mikoto. Tsukushi no himuka no tachihana no. Odo no hamagi haragi misogi harai tamo. Toki ni narimaseru. Araido no okami tachi. Moro moro no magagoto
ことのよしを天津神国津神やおよろずの神たちともに雨の内駒の耳に振り立ててきこしめせとかしこみむまをす弥勒を御神守りたまえ先はえたまえ弥勒を御神守りたまえ先はえたまえ教えみよや主の神守りたまえ先はえたまえ教えみよや主の神守りたまえ先はえたまえくんながら魂ありませくんながら魂ありませGreat God of light, creator and giver of all life, in accordance with your divine will, the long age of night draws to an end. Your radiant divine light, shining evermore brilliantly, awakens the dawn of the glorious age of light, a time long awaited by all humanity. We thank you for guiding us to your divine plan, and for the privilege of channeling and receiving Johrei. May our spirits and bodies be illuminated and purified as we live your truth given to us by Meishu-sama. Make us pure and effective instruments of your divine light, so that we may serve you and all those with whom we come in contact. May paradise on earth be realized, with health, peace, and prosperity, a reality in our lives. Great God of light, bless and protect us, radiate our souls with your divine light, so that we may truly become instruments of your great plan. Please be seated. We will now receive group Johrei.
Obrigado, ministro. Uma vez.
Johrei is now concluded. We will now listen to a reading from Meishu-sama's teachings. My light. Some readers, no doubt, are astonished by the things I have written about Buddhism. Things that have been divinely revealed to me, though never said by anyone before. It is merely a matter of timing that has prevented God from making these things clear before. For a long time, darkness and ignorance have prevailed, but a great transition into an age of brilliant sunlight, driving away the dark, is approaching. Even in the age of darkness, of course, the light of the moon enabled people to discern things to a certain extent, and they were grateful for such small mercies. I refer to the teaching of Buddhism. Yet, moonlight is only about 1/60th the power of sunlight, too dim to make things clearly visible. Thus, throughout the period of darkness, human beings were deluded, unable to live in peace and tranquility, since neither religion nor anything else was clearly discerned. But when it is day, everything on earth is clearly revealed in the light of the sun, and nothing is obscure, so that it is perfectly natural that I, whose task is to create a civilization of day, should understand all things. What exactly is my relation to the world today? Within my body resides a ball of light, what was known from ancient times as the Sintamani jewel. I have already made this fact known, but here I shall deal with the light itself in detail. It has been thought that the light is the radiance of the sun, but this is mistaken. It is, in fact, a close conjunction of the light of the sun and the moon. Its fundamental nature is a union of the two extreme elements of fire, sun, and water, moon. As long as it resides in my body, the soil element of my flesh is added to those two elements, thus completing the three-in-one triad of fire, water, and soil. In saying this, I do not imply that ordinary people are made up entirely of the soil element. They too have light, though it is small and weak. My light, however, is much larger than that of ordinary people. It may be tens of thousands of or millions of times larger, or so infinitely larger that it defies the imagination. When worn on the person, the three kinds of focal points bearing the characters for light, divine light, and great divine light immediately manifest healing powers radiated by the light of their written characters. In writing them, I neither pray nor do anything out of the ordinary. I merely write them, one at a time, at a great speed. It takes about 7 seconds to write one, and I can easily write 500 in an hour. Each of those pieces of paper is capable of curing tens of thousands of people. Though I may give them to hundreds of thousands of people, their effectiveness remains unchanged. In other words, the power of the light I possess is inconceivably great. Since I possess such power, it is unlikely that I should fail to understand anything. As our members well know, no matter what I'm asked, I am never at loss for an answer. Sometimes, Suffering people in places far removed from me telegraph, asking for blessings, and many of them receive curative aid from me by doing no more than that. As soon as I hear of their plight, a part of me, a part of the light within me, breaks off and connects with them. The light travels through spiritual cords to bring them assistance. Since this light can be multiplied tens of thousands of times, irradiate and radiate as far as necessary to make such connections, it is extremely precious. In simpler terms, what radiates from me could be called like bullets, except that unlike ordinary bullets, they do not kill, but give life. This general explanation deals with only a part of my power. To explain all of it would be difficult. Even so, it will be enough to make people open their eyes and observe the work I do in the future. Any person of intelligence will be able to understand to some extent. In religious terms, people vary in their spiritual awareness. And if believers purify their bodies and souls wholeheartedly so that they are free of clouds, they will be spiritually enlightened and accurately comprehend my great power.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Meishu-sama's birthday.
Someone's birthday.
In the teaching today, we heard that when Meishu-sama would receive a telegram, a person then would receive a blessing because Meishu-sama would send his light in direction to the request. So I have this reminiscence about Meishu-sama. We have the book Remembering Meishu-sama, and there is this part that title is God Will Accept Any Requests from Meishu-sama. I would like to share that part with you. Around 1948 or 1949, this is the minister who was sharing his account. My wife Takako suffered from toxemia following the birth of a child. Her whole body went into convulsions, and it looked as if her life was in danger. I sent a telegram asking for Meishu-sama's prayer. Soon afterward, her condition improved, and I immediately sent a telegram of thanks. I thought that my wife was on the road to recovery, until a week later, when her condition became much worse. The situation looked so bad that I thought my wife had already gone to the spiritual realm. On the remote chance that it might help, I sent another telegram to Meishu-sama, asking for a special blessing. Sitting at her bedside, I held Takako's hand and felt her pulse. It stopped for what seemed like more than 10 minutes. I continued chanting prayers for her. Our 6 older children gathered around the bed, cried because they thought their mother was dead. I told them not to cry, that their mother was going to a nice place, but I felt the heaviness of grief in my heart. Then we heard a loud sound, some big noise, a shattering noise, and the whole house shook. We thought a bomb had exploded nearby, or maybe an earthquake had hit the area. Then I noticed the return of her pulse, at first very feeble, which became a little stronger and finally normal. Before the family's very eyes, life came back into her face and she began to breathe again. At last, she opened her eyes and said with a vacant stare, "Where am I?" You are home, I replied. What home? She asked as though unable to understand. Isn't this your home? I asked, but my words seemed not to reach her. Why did you call me? She asked. I was in a lovely field, and I was walking toward the palace. I was very happy. Then you called me. I turned around and looked back. I'm sorry I did that. She spoke as if in half in a dream and half awake. After that, my wife improved steadily. A month later, I took her to the headquarters to thank Meishu-sama. As Meishu-sama gave her Johrei, he said, Yes, you will be all right now. When I got the second telegram about you, I was surprised. It won't be easy, I thought. I asked God for a special blessing. Hearing Meishu-sama's remarks, I wept uncontrollably. I was so overcome with gratitude that I was left speechless. I feel that God will accept any request if they come from Meishu-sama. If we rely on Meishu-sama and do our best to help in his work, then God will accept our prayers and requests through Meishu-sama. So this story is very famous, being described in many other books, including Meishu-sama's biography, The Light from the East. So we know the author of this episode is Reverend Katsuichi Watanabe. Reverend Katsuichi Watanabe was the father of our beloved Reverend Tetsu Watanabe, who was the worldwide president, also the pioneer expansion in Brazil. Katsuichi Watanabe, the father, was born in Gifu. He was a successful businessman operating a chain of 10 grocery stores in Tokyo. When in 1943, he came into contact with Johrei. He received the sacred focal point in that year and soon forsook his business and began serving in Johrei dissemination full-time. He later built a big Johrei center in Nagoya, guiding tens of thousands of people to Johrei membership, and trained many future ministers. The big sound, the exploding noise he describes in his testimonial, we observe an extremely intense and strong spiritual energy is sent to somebody. In the same book, Remembering Meishu-sama, there is another passage I would like to share with you. This one, the title is, He Simply Said, I Can Heal It. In April 1939, my eldest daughter, who was 2.5 years old, suddenly complained of a terrible pain in her leg. I took her to a hospital examination. The doctor said, Oh, this is serious. It is tuberculosis osteoides, commonly called Pott's disease. The X-ray showed 2 black spots about the size of an adult's thumb on her thigh bone. As you can see in this photo, her thigh bone is affected in 2 spots, said the doctor. She must have absolute rest. If this can be contained successfully until she's old enough for school, she can go to school limping. If you don't follow my instruction and let her walk, she would have to have her leg amputated at the hip. Alarmed with this news, I did not know what to do. Then I met a friend who was suffering from the same condition and whom I had not seen for some time. He looked very healthy and fine. I asked what happened with his illness, and he said it was healed through Johrei. I immediately asked the Johrei minister who had tended to my friend's disease to come to my home. He looked at my daughter's condition and said, this is a serious case. I can take you to Meishu-sama, and she can receive Johrei there. He took us that day to Meishu-sama's residence in Tamagawa. Meishu-sama looked at my daughter and laughed. This is nothing. I can heal it right away. I could not believe his words. One of the best surgeons in Japan at that time said he might have to amputate her leg. I was in doubt when this person said, "Oh, I can heal it right now." Meishu-sama placed the palm of his hand near the child who was standing before him. Staring at the girl with his eyes half open, he held his breath for a moment. Much as if he were praying, he administered Johrei. In 2 minutes, it was over. There, now you are better, Meishu-sama said. With this, you won't have to come again. But it was all over so quickly that I was reluctant to believe Meishu-sama. This did not look like the normal way to deal with disease. And it was not 1 hour or even 30 minutes. He finished in 2 minutes and said, "It's done. It's healed." I did not know what to think of it, and I was not particularly grateful. When we had come in, her leg was so painful that she could not walk on it, and I had to carry her. Now, on the way out, she stood up first and ran to the entryway as she left the room. It was about 110 yards from the gate of Meishu-sama's house to the railway station. And she went ahead before me, not just walking, but running. On board the train home, she looked very happy to be able to walk after not doing so for a long time. She moved and walked all over in the train. When we got home, my wife was so surprised with this change and so happy, but I could not believe it. And I wanted to try to see if our daughter was really well. In the summer, I took her to go bathing in the sea. And in the autumn, I brought her to the mountains for camping and walking, and let her walk in the mountains. But she had no problems. And finally, I was convinced that our daughter had been healed from this difficult situation. So, this story is also famous in the history of Johrei, being described in several books, including Meishu-sama's biography, The Light from the East. Hence, we know the author is Reverend Sakae Iwamatsu. Iwamatsu was born in Chiba and became an artist painter in the Japanese style. After his daughter's illness was cured, he received the sacred focal point in 1940 and soon devoted his life for Johrei dissemination full time. He later built a big center in Nara, guided tens of thousands of people to Johrei, and trained many future ministers. Regarding the training of future ministers by these wonderful two reverends, disciples of Meishu-sama, I was blessed to participate in two encounters with them when I was training in Japan. And in both situations, something embarrassing happened with me. In both opportunities, as they start speaking, counting their many experiences with Meishu-sama, I dozed off. I slept all over. In one of them, we were sitting in these comfortable couches while we were listening to the Reverend's stories. So I could not, keep myself awake. And I was very close to this one was Reverend Katsuichi Watanabe. So I was asking the other trainees that were next to me, please kick me, elbow me, do something. I cannot miss this opportunity. It's too sacred, right? But I just couldn't. Maybe was that those two encounters coincidentally were just after lunch. So could be an excuse, or could be I still had some jet lag because was right in the beginning when I just went to Japan. But the matter is that the only part I could hear from Reverend Watanabe's meeting with him, when I finally could open my eyes, and he said, was telling to everybody, we were in about 12 of us. One of my best disciples never listened to my lectures. He always slept over them. But he ended up being a good minister anyway. So I felt, oh, okay, so I still have a chance. So these are wonderful stories. There are many others in this book, Remembering Meishu-sama, I want you to read. And today, most especially because it's Meishu-sama's birthday celebration. There are so many accounts of gratitude, of miracles. And Meishu-sama made sure he encouraged others to write about them, him. He said, you can be honest, you can be frank, you don't have to just write you know, positive or anything. Whatever you observe in me, write. And that may be useful for others. And so indeed, it's useful for me, and it's being still useful for many of us in the Johrei movement. I want to wish you very blessed, very happy holidays. You probably received announcements. We will be closed from tomorrow, the 24th, until the 31st of December. We will reopen January 1st. On January 2nd, we will have our New Year's service. So again, blessed holidays, and we will be starting the new year at full speed, having Johrei and Meishu-sama's teachings at the center of our activities. Thank you very much.
This brings to a conclusion our evening service, a special service for Meishu-sama's birthday. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we wish you a very blessed evening.